The funeral pyres burned on Mustafar's obsidian plains, 17 flames against a sky choked with volcanic ash. Dr. Catherine Halsey stood before them, her Navy uniform pristine despite the heat, watching bodies she'd created turn to smoke and carbon. 17 enhanced soldiers. The oldest was 6 months. The youngest had emerged from accelerated growth barely 3 weeks before dying on Kamino's rain-soaked platforms. They'd never chosen to exist. They'd never chosen to fight. And they'd never had the chance to choose anything else. Behind her, the survivors assembled in formation, 76 enhanced clones in their Mark 7 armor, silent as gravestones. Beside them, the 4 Spartans stood at attention, their postures carrying decades of funeral experience. How many brothers and sisters had John, Fred, Kelly, and Linda watched burn? How many times had they stood exactly like this, honoring the dead, while wondering when their own pyre would be lit? Doctor, Tanwi's voice was quiet, respectful. The Kaminoan scientist stood at Halsey's elbow, her elongated fingers holding a datapad. Count Dooku is requesting your presence. He says it's urgent. Let him wait, Halsey said. Her voice was hollow. They deserve this much. In the old Spartan program, they'd held ceremonies for the fallen, brief, military-efficient acknowledgments before moving on to the next operation. Halsey had attended dozens, said the right words, maintained proper composure, but she'd never felt the weight of them, not really. The original Spartans had been necessary sacrifices for humanity's survival, tragic but justified by the existential threat of the Covenant. These 17 soldiers had died for separatist objectives in a war that wasn't theirs, fighting enemies who'd done nothing to them, all because Halsey needed to prove her value to people who'd never truly valued her. The difference was crushing. They were good soldiers, Fred 104 said, his voice carrying through his helmet's external speakers. They learned fast, fought hard, died well. They shouldn't have died at all, Halsey said quietly. Movement rippled through the assembled enhanced clones. Their helmet sensors tracked toward her, processing her words, comparing them against every interaction they'd had with their creator, looking for the lie, looking for the manipulation. They wouldn't find one. For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, Catherine Halsey was being completely, devastatingly honest. Aurelius, she said. Front and center. The Force-sensitive clone stepped forward from Alpha Squad's formation. His armor bore scorch marks from Kamino. A Jedi's lightsaber had nearly killed him, protecting the research data Halsey had ordered them to secure. He moved with the fluid grace of someone who could sense danger before it manifested, his augmented body responding to precognitive warnings only he could perceive. When he removed his helmet, his face was young, impossibly young for someone who'd seen as much combat as his flash-trained memories suggested. But his eyes were old. They held the weight of every doubt, every question, every moment of clarity that came from sensing emotions through the Force. He could feel her guilt, her shame, her desperate clawing need to justify what she'd done. Sir, Aurelius said. The word carried no mockery, but no warmth either, just professional acknowledgement. Tell me what you sense, Halsey said. Right now, what am I feeling? Aurelius's eyes narrowed. Around them, the enhanced clones shifted. This wasn't standard protocol. This was their creator asking to be psychologically dissected in front of everyone. Doctor, I don't think that's an order, soldier. Aurelius was silent for 3 heartbeats. Then, grief, real grief, not performed. You're mourning them. He paused. But underneath that, there's something worse. Self-loathing. You hate yourself for creating us. Not because we exist, but because you created us for the wrong reasons. The assembled enhanced clones were utterly still. You created the original Spartans to save humanity from extinction, Aurelius continued, his force-enhanced perception cutting through every defense Halsey had. You live with the guilt of the children who died in augmentation, but you can justify it because those who survived became heroes. They saved billions. They turned the tide against the Covenant. His voice dropped. But us? You created us to survive in a galaxy that isn't yours, to prove your genius still mattered when everything you'd built your life around was torn away. We're not saviors, Doctor. We're your attempt to stay relevant. And 17 of our brothers died, proving your worth to people who'll never see us as anything except weapons. The truth hung in Mustafar's toxic air like a blade. Halsey could have denied it, could have fallen back on the same rhetoric that had carried her through decades of controversy, necessity, pragmatism, the greater good. But standing before 17 funeral pyres, watching smoke rise from bodies she'd engineered for purposes she couldn't defend anymore, the lies wouldn't come. "You're right," she said quietly. Shock rippled through the assembled soldiers. Even the Spartans shifted. John's helmet tilted fractionally. Fred's stance changed minutely. In 30 years of service, they'd never heard Dr. Halsey admit she was wrong about anything. "I created you for selfish reasons," Halsey continued, her voice steady despite the devastation beneath. "I told myself it was survival, that we needed allies, resources, leverage in a galaxy that wanted us dead or captured. But the truth is, I couldn't accept being powerless. I couldn't accept that my life's work might end with a slipspace malfunction. So I built you, enhanced you, turned you into soldiers for a war I barely understand, fighting for objectives I can't justify." She looked at Aurelius. "You asked me once what purpose you serve. I told you that you serve yourselves, your brothers, your survival. But I lied. You serve my ego, my inability to let go, my desperate need to prove that Catherine Halsey still matters." The silence was absolute. Then Aurelius spoke, and his voice carried something unexpected, not anger, understanding. "You're human," he said simply, "flawed, terrified of irrelevance, clinging to the only thing you know how to do, create soldiers." He paused. "But you're also honest. Right now, in front of everyone, you're admitting what you did wrong. That's more than the Jedi gave us, more than the Republic, more than Dooku." He looked back at Alpha Squad, at the other enhanced clones. "She made us, she used us, but she's also standing here saying she was wrong. That counts for something." "Does it?" Another voice, Castor, Beta Squad's leader. 17 of our brothers are dead, Aurelius. How many more die before her honesty matters?" "As many as it takes for her to change," Aurelius said. "Or as many as it takes for us to stop following her." The challenge was explicit. The enhanced clones weren't blindly loyal anymore. They were choosing, moment by moment, whether to stay. Halsey felt the weight of that choice pressing down on her. She could order them to stay, pull rank, use the conditioning she'd built into their flash training, but that would make her exactly what Aurelius described, a manipulator using soldiers for her own purposes. "I'm giving you a choice," Halsey said. "All of you, stay or go. If you stay, it won't be as my weapons. It'll be as partners. Full transparency on every mission, every objective, every decision. You'll have veto authority on operations you find morally objectionable. And if we survive long enough, I'll help you find a purpose beyond fighting." She gestured to the funeral pyres. "But I can't promise you won't die. I can't promise this galaxy won't chew us up and spit us out. All I can promise is that I'll stop using you to prove my worth. Your lives matter more than my legacy." Fred stepped forward. "Doctor, we need to discuss." "Not now, Fred," John 1:17 interrupted. The Master Chief moved to stand between Halsey and the enhanced clones. "This is their decision, not ours." The enhanced clones looked at each other, 76 soldiers who'd been alive for months at most, carrying flash-trained memories of tactics and warfare, but no experience with genuine choice. They'd been created, trained, deployed. Now they were being asked to decide their own fate. Aurelius was the first to kneel. "I stay, not because I'm programmed to, because I want to know what I can become if someone gives me the chance." One by one, Alpha Squad followed, then Beta, Gamma, Delta, 76 enhanced soldiers, making the choice their creator should have given them from the beginning. When the last one knelt, Halsey felt something crack in her chest. Not relief, not vindication, just the terrible weight of responsibility freely accepted instead of enforced. "Then we start over," she said. "New protocols, new objectives. And the first one is getting the hell off Mustafar before Dooku decides we're too independent to live with." "About that," Tonwi said, her voice carrying unusual tension. "You should see this." The Kaminoan pulled up holographic feeds from Mustafar's orbital sensors. What Halsey saw made her blood run cold. Space above the planet was tearing. Not the clean blue-white of hyperspace. Not the purple wound that had brought the Pelican through from her universe. This was something worse. Reality splitting along impossible geometries, leaking radiation that made sensors scream in protest. And through that tear came ships, massive, organic-looking, their hulls textured like insect carapaces, glowing with purple energy that pulsed like a heartbeat, weapons batteries that could glass planets, fighter bays disgorging craft that moved with predatory grace. Halsey recognized them instantly. The design was burned into her memory from decades of war, from hundreds of battles, from the desperate defensive reach that had sent her and the Spartans fleeing through slipspace. Covenant, a full assault carrier, supported by at least 20 CCS-class battlecruisers and dozens of smaller vessels. Not a reconnaissance force, not a probing attack. This was an invasion fleet capable of reducing entire star systems to radioactive ash. "What are those?" Aurelius breathed. "The reason I created the Spartans," Halsey said, her voice dead. "The alien alliance that's been trying to exterminate humanity for 30 years. The existential threat that justified every horrible thing I did to create super soldiers." She looked at John. "They followed us through the dimensional barrier, and if they're here, that means..." The lead assault carrier's communications array activated, broadcasting across every frequency. The voice that emerged was digitized, translated through Covenant systems into something humans could understand. But beneath the mechanical translation, Halsey heard the religious fervor that had driven the Covenant to genocide. "Beings of this dimension," the prophet's voice resonated with absolute certainty. "You exist in blasphemy. Your civilizations defile the holy path. Your technologies corrupt the sacred artifacts of the Forerunners. The hierarchs have spoken. The great journey demands purification." Holographic displays showed the Covenant fleet moving into assault formation. Their weapons were charging. "This galaxy will be cleansed. Your worlds will burn. Your species will be eradicated. The Covenant brings the holy fire of the gods, and all shall be remade in purity." The transmission cut. For 5 seconds, nobody moved. 76 enhanced clones, 4 Spartans, 1 scientist, and 1 Kaminoan stood frozen as the implications crashed over them. Then every alarm in Mustafar's facility began screaming simultaneously. "Separatist fleet in orbit is engaging," a technician's voice crackled through the comm system. "Multiple Covenant vessels are returning fire. By the gods, what are those things? Halsey's mind shifted into crisis mode, the same cold calculation that had served her during Reach's final hours. Tanwi, how fast can we evacuate this facility? Impossible, the Kaminoan said flatly. We have equipment, research data, cloning chambers with candidates in development. Full evacuation would take days. We don't have days, John said, pulling up tactical data. That's a Prophet-class assault carrier. It can glass a planet. If they're following standard Covenant doctrine, Mustafar has maybe 6 hours before orbital bombardment. Then we prioritize, Halsey said. Enhanced soldiers, grab your personal weapons and whatever armor we can carry. Tanwi, dump all research data to portable drives. Spartans, secure the hangar bay and get every ship we have flight ready. Doctor, Fred said carefully, the Separatists in orbit are getting slaughtered. Whatever those Covenant ships are using, it's cutting through Providence-class carriers like tissue paper. Through the facility's viewports, they could see it. Flashes of light in Mustafar's sky as the battle raged in orbit. Purple plasma lances intercepting turbo laser fire. Separatist vessels exploding in cascading fireballs. The Covenant fleet moving through the engagement with the same terrifying efficiency Halsey remembered from 100 battles. The Separatists were doomed. Dooku's forces would be annihilated within the hour, which meant Halsey's protection, her resources, her entire arrangement with the Confederacy was about to evaporate. Count Dooku is hailing, Tanwi reported. He's demanding to speak with you immediately. Put him through. Dooku's hologram flickered into existence, and for the first time since Halsey had met the Sith Lord, she saw genuine concern on his aristocratic features. Dr. Halsey, what in the name of the Force are those vessels? My fleet is being destroyed by weapons technology I've never encountered. This isn't Republic. It's not anything in our databases. They're Covenant, Halsey interrupted, an alien theocratic alliance from my dimension. They've been conducting a genocidal campaign against humanity for 3 decades. And if they're here, Count Dooku, your political games just became irrelevant. Genocidal? Dooku's eyes widened. Doctor, I'm evacuating Mustafar. The facility, your research, all of it is lost. I'm offering transport for you and your soldiers aboard my flagship, but we need to leave now. No. Dooku blinked. Excuse me? I said no, Halsey repeated. I'm done making deals with people who see my soldiers as assets to be used. We're leaving Mustafar, but we're doing it on our terms. You want to survive the Covenant? Then you're going to listen very carefully to what I tell you about how they fight. Otherwise, your entire separatist movement will be dust within a month. The Sith Lord's expression hardened. Dr. Halsey, you're in no position to dictate terms. The Covenant don't care about your politics, Dooku. They don't care about Republic versus Separatist. They see this entire galaxy as an affront to their gods. They'll glass Coruscant and Geonosis with equal enthusiasm. Halsey's voice was ice. But I know how they think. I know their tactics, their weapons, their doctrine. I've fought them for decades. You need me alive more than you need me obedient. Silence. Then Dooku smiled, a genuine expression of respect beneath the concern. Very well, Doctor. What are your terms? Full autonomy. You provide transportation off Mustafar, but my soldiers and I are no longer separatist assets. We operate independently, sharing intelligence about the Covenant in exchange for resources and sanctuary. No more missions we haven't agreed to. No more using my enhanced clones as disposable shock troops. Agreed, Dooku said without hesitation. But Doctor, we need to leave in the next 20 minutes. The Covenant are deploying ground forces. Whatever you're taking, take it now. The transmission cut. Halsey turned to her assembled forces. 76 enhanced clones who'd just chosen to follow her, 4 Spartans who'd followed her across dimensional barriers, and Tanwi, the only Kaminoan who'd sacrificed everything to pursue scientific advancement without restriction. "You heard him?" Halsey said. 20 minutes, grab everything essential, destroy everything else. And if the Covenant breach this facility before we're clear, they won't, John said with absolute certainty. Spartans don't lose to Covenant ground forces. We've had 30 years of practice. The facility exploded into controlled chaos. Enhanced soldiers moved through the laboratories, grabbing weapons, armor, research equipment. Tanwi's team dumped petabytes of data onto encrypted drives. The Spartans secured the hangar bay, preparing the 3 frigates they'd acquired through separatist channels. Halsey stood in her office one last time, looking at the space where she'd built an enhanced clone army, where she'd advanced augmentation science beyond anything the Kaminoans had achieved, where she'd proven her genius could transcend dimensional barriers, and where she'd learned that genius without conscience created only suffering. She grabbed a single data pad, the one containing her personal logs, the record of every decision, every rationalization, every moment of doubt she'd buried under layers of necessity and pragmatism. Then she walked away without looking back. The hangar bay was organized chaos. Enhanced soldiers boarding the frigates in perfect formation, their training overriding the fear that came with facing an enemy they'd never encountered. Tanwi was already aboard the lead ship, coordinating with the pilots. "Doctor," Aurelius called from across the bay, "Covenant drop pods detected. Multiple impacts across the facility's southern sectors." Halsey's blood ran cold. Covenant ground forces moved faster than any standard military. Within minutes, they'd be overrunning the facility. "All ships begin launch sequence," she ordered. "Spartans rear guard. If the Covenant reach the hangar before we're clear." The southern wall exploded inward, not from human explosives, from plasma charges that turned metal into liquid slag. Through the breach came the nightmare Halsey had spent 3 decades fighting. Sangheili warriors in powered armor, their shields shimmering, their energy swords igniting with lethal grace. Behind them, Ungoi and Kigyar shock troops, their weapons already firing, and at the center, a Sangheili Ultra in golden armor, his mandibles spreading in what might have been a smile or a battle cry. "Heretics," the Ultra's voice boomed through translation systems. "The sacred journey awaits. Die with honor or die screaming. The choice is irrelevant." The Covenant charged. And for the first time, the enhanced clones faced an enemy that made the Republic, the Separatists, and even the Jedi seemed tame by comparison. The Covenant hit like a hammer forged in religious fury. Plasma bolts scorched across the hangar bay, superheating metal and flash vaporizing atmosphere. The Sangheili Ultra moved with grace that matched Jedi force enhancement, his energy sword carving through a loading crane like it was smoke. Behind him, the Covenant ground forces poured through the breach in a tide of shields, armor, and zealotry. The enhanced clones responded with the precision Halsey had engineered into them. "Contact front," Aurelius's voice cut through the chaos. "Alpha Squad, concentrated fire on the Ultra. Beta, suppress the Ungoi. Gamma, watch our flanks." MA-5D assault rifles thundered in controlled bursts. The enhanced soldiers' augmented reflexes allowed them to track targets, moving at speeds that would blur to normal humans. Their flash-trained tactical knowledge provided instant threat assessment, and their force-enhanced awareness, even among those without Aurelius's sensitivity, gave them split-second warnings of incoming fire. A Sangheili miner charged Beta Squad's position, its shields flaring as bullets hammered into it. The enhanced clone designated Castor didn't flinch. His augmented strength allowed him to maintain fire discipline, even as the alien warrior closed to melee range. When the Sangheli's shield finally collapsed, Castor put 3 rounds through its throat. The warrior collapsed, mandibles spasming, purple blood pooling on Mustafar's industrial deck. But for every Covenant soldier that fell, 2 more pushed through the breach. "They're not stopping," one of the enhanced clones shouted. "They're not retreating even when we kill them." "Religious fanatics," John 1:17 said coldly, his battle rifle tracking a Kigyar sniper. "They think dying in combat sends them to paradise. Fear won't work. You have to break their formations." The Master Chief proved his point by putting a 3-round burst through a Sangheli Major's shield, then closing distance with enhanced speed that caught the alien off guard. John's armored fist crashed into the warrior's mandibles with enough force to crack bone. The Sangheli staggered. John didn't give it time to recover. He grabbed its energy sword arm, twisted with Spartan strength, and shattered the joint. The warrior's own blade carved through its torso as John used its momentum against it. Fred and Linda provided covering fire from elevated positions. Their decades of experience against Covenant forces, giving them tactical advantages the enhanced clones were only beginning to understand. Kelly 087 moved through the combat zone like a ghost, her augmented speed allowing her to flank Covenant positions before they could reorient. But it was Aurelius who demonstrated something the Covenant had never encountered before. The Force-sensitive clone raised one hand toward a cluster of Ungoi, and the Force responded, not with the controlled precision of Jedi training, but with raw, instinctive power born from combat desperation. 3 Ungoi flew backward as if struck by an invisible battering ram, their methane tanks rupturing, their bodies crumpling against the hangar wall. The Sangheli Ultra's head snapped toward Aurelius, its mandibles spread wide. "Demon!" the Ultra hissed in perfect English, its translator catching up. "You wield powers like the Oracle Defilers, but you lack their discipline. You are chaos given form." The Ultra charged directly at Aurelius, moving with speed that blurred even to augmented vision. Its energy sword blazed with white-hot plasma, ready to cleave the Force-sensitive clone in half. Aurelius didn't try to dodge. Instead, he ignited his own weapon, the lightsaber Dooku had given him, its blue blade snapping to life with that distinctive snap hiss. The energy sword and lightsaber met in a shower of sparks and exotic radiation, 2 entirely different technologies creating the same lethal result. They dueled across the hangar bay, the Sangheli's centuries of warrior culture meeting Aurelius's flash-trained combat knowledge and force-enhanced precognition. The Ultra was faster, more experienced, but Aurelius could see attacks coming before they happened, his connection to the Force giving him split-second warnings that turned lethal strikes into narrow misses. "All ships ready for launch," Tanwi's voice crackled through comms. "But we can't lift off with Covenant forces in the hangar. The plasma wash will kill everyone still fighting." Halsey's mind raced through impossible equations. The Covenant were pouring through the breach faster than they could be killed. The enhanced clones were holding, but barely. And if they didn't evacuate in the next 5 minutes, the Covenant fleet in orbit would begin glassing Mustafar's surface. "John, we need to collapse that breach," she shouted over the weapons fire. "Working on it." The Master Chief sprinted toward the southern wall, dodging plasma fire with Spartan efficiency. He grabbed a plasma grenade from a dead Ungoi, primed it, and hurled it at the breach's structural supports. The explosion sent molten metal cascading down, but the breach was too large. Covenant forces continued pushing through. Kelly joined him, both Spartans firing at the ceiling supports, trying to trigger a controlled collapse. But Mustafar's industrial construction was too robust. It would take demolition charges they didn't have time to place. Then Aurelius did something that changed everything. The Force-sensitive clone disengaged from his duel with the Ultra, turned toward the massive loading crane John had been using for cover, and pushed with the Force. The crane, a 50-ton industrial construct designed to move starship components, tore free from its moorings with a shriek of tortured metal. It flew through the air like a child's toy, crashed into the breach, and its momentum carried it through the wall into the facility beyond. The impact triggered a cascade failure in Mustafar's already damaged structure. The southern wall collapsed. Tons of metal, rockreet, and industrial equipment buried the Covenant breach under an avalanche of debris. Sangheili warriors were crushed mid-charge. Ungoi disappeared beneath collapsing ceiling panels. Even the Ultra was caught by the edge of the collapse, its golden armor buried under enough weight to crack its shields. Silence fell over the hangar, broken only by alarms and the crackle of cooling metal. "By the gods," Castor breathed. "Aurelius, did you just lift off?" Halsey shouted. "Now, before they dig through." The enhanced clones sprinted for the ships. The Spartans provided rear guard, their weapons trained on the collapsed wall in case any Covenant forces emerged. Within 90 seconds, all 76 enhanced soldiers, 4 Spartans, Halsey, and Tanwi, were aboard the 3 frigates. The ships lifted with emergency thrust that would have killed unaugmented passengers, but everyone aboard was either augmented or strapped into crash harnesses designed for combat insertions. The frigates punched through Mustafar's toxic atmosphere, rising toward an orbital battlefield that had become hell itself. What Halsey saw through the viewports made her stomach drop. The Separatist fleet was dying. Count Dooku's flagship, the Invisible Hand, limped through space-trailing atmosphere and debris. A dozen Providence-class carriers were already gone, expanding debris clouds marking where they'd been. Vulture droids swarmed in desperate attack runs, their laser fire splashing uselessly against Covenant energy shields. And through it all, the Covenant fleet advanced with mechanical precision. The Prophet-class assault carrier, designated Solemn Penance according to Halsey's database, hung in space like a mechanical god. Its plasma batteries fired in controlled salvos, each shot precisely calculated to maximize damage. A single lance of purple plasma carved through a Separatist frigate's shields, cored the vessel from bow to stern, and the ship simply came apart. "Covenant fleet is hailing us," the frigate's pilot reported, his voice tight with fear. "They're demanding we identify ourselves." "Don't respond," Halsey ordered. "They've already decided we're heretics. Talking just gives them time to target us." "Dr. Dooku's flagship is signaling," Tanwi said from the sensor station. "He's requesting we dock for combined evacuation." Halsey pulled up tactical displays. The Invisible Hand was dying. Its shields were at 30%, hull breaches across multiple decks, and its hyperdrive was offline. Dooku had maybe 10 minutes before Covenant forces boarded or the ship's reactor went critical. Every instinct screamed at Halsey to abandon him. Dooku was Sith. He'd used her enhanced soldiers as pawns in his political games. He'd brought her to Mustafar knowing full well the Separatist Council saw her as a liability, but he'd also given her resources when she had nothing. Protected her from Republic prosecution, and most importantly, he'd just agreed to her terms for autonomy without hesitation. Halsey had spent 3 decades making cold calculations about acceptable losses and strategic necessity. For once, she was going to make a decision based on something else. "Take us in," she ordered. "We're getting Dooku off that ship." John's helmet turned toward her. "Doctor, that's strategically questionable, I know," Halsey interrupted. But Dooku has intelligence about this galaxy we need, and more importantly, he's willing to negotiate with us instead of trying to control us. That makes him more valuable alive than dead. The frigate angled toward the invisible hand, dodging debris and plasma fire. A Covenant destroyer noticed their approach and swung toward them, its weapons charging. "Evasive!" the pilot shouted. The frigate rolled hard, its inertial dampeners struggling to compensate. A plasma torpedo streaked past, close enough that its heat signature registered on hull sensors. The Covenant destroyer was accelerating, closing distance for another shot. Then something extraordinary happened. A Republic Venator-class Star Destroyer dropped out of hyperspace directly between the Covenant fleet and Mustafar. Then another. Then 6 more. Republic Navy vessels are engaging the Covenant, sensors reported. Multiple attack groups entering the system. Through the viewport, Halsey watched the Republic fleet engage the Covenant with coordinated precision. Turbo laser batteries hammered Covenant shields. Republic V-19 Torrent starfighters swarmed Seraph interceptors, and at the center of the formation, the lead Venator broadcast on all frequencies. All vessels in the Mustafar system. This is Admiral Yularen of the Republic Navy. We're detecting massive hostile forces using unknown technology. All ships are ordered to fall back to Republic defensive positions. I repeat, fall back immediately. The Republic, Aurelius said slowly, they're saving us. They're saving themselves, Halsey corrected. They don't know what the Covenant are yet, but they recognize an extinction-level threat. Right now, everyone in this system has the same enemy. The invisible hand loomed ahead, its hangar bay open and emergency lit. Their frigate slipped inside to find organized chaos, separatist personnel evacuating, battle droids standing ready to repel borders, and Count Dooku himself waiting on the landing platform. The Sith Lord looked diminished somehow. His aristocratic bearing remained, but his robes were scorched, and there was blood on his face. His own, surprisingly. Whatever had happened aboard this ship, Dooku had been in combat. "Dr. Halsey," he said as she descended the ramp, "your timing is impeccable, as always. Your ship is dying, Count. We don't have time for pleasantries. Get your essential personnel aboard our frigates. Everything else stays." Dooku nodded sharply. "General Grievous is coordinating the evacuation of our droid command systems. The Separatist Council." He paused, his expression darkening. "The Separatist Council is dead. The Covenant boarded our command ship 30 minutes ago. Newt Gunray, Wat Tambor, all of them, slaughtered by those alien warriors." Halsey felt cold settle in her chest. The Separatist leadership, dead in less than an hour. The Covenant weren't just attacking, they were decapitating the entire Confederacy with surgical precision. "How many ships do you have left?" 12, maybe 15 if you count the heavily damaged vessels. Dooku's voice was hollow. "I brought 300 ships to Mustafar, Doctor. The Covenant destroyed 285 of them in 45 minutes. The numbers were devastating. The Separatist military crippled in a single engagement. And if the Covenant could do this to one of the Clone Wars' major factions..." "The Republic is next," Halsey said. "Then they'll move through the galaxy system by system, world by world, until everything burns. That's Covenant doctrine, total war, complete eradication. Then we must warn them," Dooku said. "The Republic, the Jedi, they need to understand what's coming." "They won't believe you," Halsey said. "You're Sith. The Republic will think this is some elaborate separatist trick. Then they'll believe you." Halsey stared at him. "I'm wanted by the Republic, Dooku. The Jedi declared me a threat to galactic stability. Why would they listen to me?" "Because," a new voice said, crackling with mechanical distortion, You're the only one who knows how to fight these Covenant, and the Jedi are desperate enough to listen to anyone right now." General Grievous emerged from the corridor, his cyborg body moving with predatory grace. The Kaleesh warlord carried himself with barely restrained violence, but his photoreceptors were focused entirely on Halsey. "I studied the tactical data from Mustafar's surface battle," Grievous said. "Your enhanced soldiers held against Covenant ground forces longer than any droid battalion I've commanded. That Ultra Warrior, the one your Force-sensitive clone fought, that was a special operations commander, elite, veteran of 100 campaigns, yet it failed to break your lines." Grievous leaned closer, his mechanical breathing loud in the hangar. "Teach me how to kill these aliens, Doctor, and I'll ensure the remaining Separatist forces follow your tactical guidance." Before Halsey could respond, every ship in the system received the same transmission simultaneously. The hologram that appeared showed a San Shayum prophet, one of the Covenant's religious leaders. Its hoverchair gleamed with religious iconography, and its voice carried the absolute certainty of someone who'd never doubted their divine mandate. "People of this dimension," the prophet intoned, "I am the prophet of regret, hierarch of the Covenant, voice of the Forerunners. You have been found wanting. Your civilizations desecrate the sacred technology of the gods. Your very existence is blasphemy." The prophet's eyes, ancient and merciless, seemed to stare through the hologram at everyone watching. "We offer no terms. We accept no surrender. The great journey demands purification, and purification requires fire. Your republic will burn. Your separatists will burn. Every world, every species, every trace of your defiling presence will be cleansed from this galaxy." The hologram shifted, showing Covenant fleets gathering across multiple star systems, dozens of assault carriers, hundreds of CCS-class battlecruisers, thousands of support vessels. "We are the instrument of the gods," the prophet continued, "and we have come to remake this galaxy in purity. Resist, and your deaths will be slow. Submit, and they will be swift. The choice changes nothing. Your extinction is divine will." The transmission ended. Silence filled every ship, every station, every world that had received the broadcast. Republic and Separatist forces stopped fighting. The Clone Wars, which had consumed the galaxy for months, suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the threat that had just announced itself. On the invisible hand, Dooku turned to Halsey. "How do we fight them?" Halsey looked at the Sith Lord, at General Grievous, at her Spartans and enhanced clones assembled behind her. Then she looked at the tactical displays showing Covenant forces spreading across the galaxy like a plague. She'd spent 30 years fighting the Covenant in her dimension. She knew their tactics, their weapons, their doctrine. She knew how they thought, how they organized, how they prosecuted total war against species they deemed heretical. And she knew something else, something the Covenant had never encountered before. This galaxy had the Force. It had Jedi and Sith who could manipulate reality itself. It had clone armies and droid legions that could be produced at scales the UNSC had never achieved. And it had her, someone who understood both the Covenant's capabilities and this galaxy's unique advantages. "We fight them by doing what neither the Republic nor Separatists can do alone," Halsey said. "We unite every faction, every military force, every tactical mind in this galaxy. We share every piece of intelligence about Covenant technology, tactics, and doctrine, and we make them learn the same lesson humanity learned during the Covenant War." She met Dooku's eyes, that religious fanatics bleed just like everyone else, and that extinction-level threats can be survived if you're willing to pay the price. "What price?" Grievous asked. Everything, Halsey said quietly. The Republic will have to work with separatists. The Jedi will have to accept help from Sith. Every faction will have to sacrifice their political objectives for pure survival. She paused. And I'll have to do something I swore I'd never do again. What's that? Dooku asked. Create an army, Halsey said. Not for conquest, not for politics, not even for survival in a galaxy that isn't mine. But for the same reason I created the original Spartans, because the alternative is extinction for everyone. Alarms shrieked through the invisible hand. Covenant boarding craft detected, a technician shouted. Multiple phantoms and spirits approaching. They're going to board us. All ships, emergency jump, Dooku commanded. Coordinates to the rendezvous point. Go now. The separatist vessels that could still jump began tearing into hyperspace, their damaged hyperdrives creating unstable transitions. Several ships didn't make it. Their systems failed and Covenant plasma batteries reduced them to expanding debris clouds. But Halsey's frigates carrying the Spartans, the enhanced clones, Dooku, and Grievous made the jump successfully. Reality twisted, stars stretched into lines, and Mustafar disappeared behind them. In the blue tunnel of hyperspace, Halsey pulled up her datapad and began composing a message. Not to the separatists, not to the Republic, but to the one organization that might listen, that might understand the scope of the threat, that might be desperate enough to accept help from a wanted woman, the Jedi Council. The message was simple. I know what the Covenant are. I know how they fight. I know how to stop them. If you want this galaxy to survive, meet me at the coordinates attached. Come alone or come with armies, I don't care. But come ready to listen, because what I'm about to tell you will change everything you think you know about warfare. Dr. Catherine Halsey, creator of the Spartan 2 program, survivor of the Covenant War, she encrypted the message with protocols that would ensure it reached the Jedi Council, specifically, then sent it into the galactic holonet. Doctor, John said quietly, the Jedi hate you. They'll think this is a trap. Probably, Halsey agreed, but they'll also see the Covenant fleet moving through the galaxy, and when they realize that conventional tactics don't work, when they watch the Covenant glass their first Republic world, they'll be desperate enough to listen. She looked at her assembled forces, 4 Spartans who'd followed her across dimensional barriers, 76 enhanced clones who'd chosen to stay despite knowing what she'd done, a Kaminoan scientist who'd sacrificed everything for research, a Sith Lord and a cyborg general who represented the separatist remnant, and somewhere in the galaxy, a Republic Navy and Jedi Order that were about to learn their war was over, replaced by something far worse. We're going to stop them, Halsey said with absolute certainty. The Covenant, the Prophet of Regret, all of it, but not by playing the same games that brought us here. We're going to do something unprecedented. What's that? Aurelius asked. Halsey smiled grimly. We're going to give this galaxy something it's never had before, a third power, not Republic, not Separatist, not even Jedi or Sith, something entirely new, something that exists for one purpose, to ensure that when the Covenant comes, they find a galaxy united, prepared, and ready to make them regret ever following us through that dimensional barrier. The ships dropped out of hyperspace at the rendezvous coordinates, a remote system far from any major hyperlanes, and waiting there, hidden among the asteroids, were other vessels, separatist survivors who'd escaped Mustafar, independent operators who'd heard about the Covenant and wanted answers, even a few Republic ships that had gone AWOL rather than retreat when faced with an enemy they didn't understand. They were the beginning, the foundation of something that would grow into the galaxy's only hope against extinction. and at its center stood Dr. Catherine Halsey, ready to build one more army, not for herself this time, but for every living being in a galaxy that had become her responsibility, whether she wanted it or not. The Covenant had come to the Star Wars galaxy expecting easy conquest. They were about to learn why humanity, in any dimension against any odds, refused to go quietly into extinction. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant was burning. Not literally, not yet, but the smoke rising from the Senate District 3 kilometers away painted the skyline in apocalyptic hues. The Covenant's first strike on the Republic capital had been surgical, devastating, and designed to send a message that transcended language barriers. The Senate building, symbol of galactic democracy for 1,000 years, was gone, reduced to a crater of fused glass and twisted durasteel by plasma bombardment from orbit. 5,000 senators, administrators, and staff had died in the initial strike. Another 20,000 in the surrounding districts when the shockwave leveled everything within 2 kilometers. And the Covenant fleet responsible hung in orbit like a mechanical moon, broadcasting that same message on every frequency: submit or burn. The choice changes nothing. Jedi Master Mace Windu stood in the council chamber, watching the smoke rise, and felt something he rarely experienced: uncertainty. Around him, the council had assembled, those who weren't already deployed across the galaxy fighting battles that suddenly seemed meaningless. 3 worlds, Master Yoda said quietly, his ancient voice heavy with grief. In 2 days, lost we have. Ryloth glassed from orbit, Christophsis invaded by ground forces we cannot identify, and now Coruscant itself, struck at our very heart. The Separatists? Master Kit Fisto asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Silent, Mace replied. No Separatist activity for 36 hours. No attacks, no communications, nothing. It's like Dooku's entire confederacy just stopped. Because they're dying too, a new voice said. Every Jedi in the chamber turned as Master Obi-Wan Kenobi entered, his robe still scorched from combat. Behind him walked Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, his mechanical hand flexing with barely controlled tension. We intercepted Separatist emergency transmissions, Obi-Wan continued, moving to the center of the chamber. The Covenant, that's what they call themselves, hit Geonosis 6 hours ago. The droid foundries are gone. We estimate the Separatists lost 60% of their manufacturing capacity in a single orbital strike. How is that possible? Shakti asked. Geonosis has planetary shields, defense platforms. Had, Anakin interrupted. His voice was tight. Whatever weapons these Covenant are using, they cut through planetary shields, like they're not even there. I watched the tactical recordings. Their plasma torpedoes don't just impact shields, they burn through them. It's like their weapons are designed to counter every defensive technology we have. Mace felt cold settle in his chest. How many ships? Initial estimates put the Covenant fleet at over 300 capital vessels, Obi-Wan said. But Master Windu, that's not the worst part. The worst part is they're organized, coordinated. They're not raiders or pirates. They're conducting a systematic military campaign with a clear strategic objective. Extermination, Yoda said softly. Genocide, they seek. Feel it in the Force. I can. A darkness unlike anything we have faced. Not the Sith's corruption, but something older, colder. We've also received this, Obi-Wan said, pulling up a holographic message. It came through encrypted Jedi channels. Someone made sure only we would receive it. The hologram flickered to life, showing a woman in a Navy uniform, human, middle-aged, with sharp features and eyes that held calculations most people couldn't comprehend. I know what the Covenant are. I know how they fight. I know how to stop them. If you want this galaxy to survive, meet me at the coordinates attached. Come alone or come with armies. I don't care. But come ready to listen, because what I'm about to tell you will change everything you think you know about warfare. Dr. Catherine Halsey. The chamber erupted in protest. Halsey, Shakti's voice was sharp. The woman who created those abominations on Kamino. The one who corrupted the Force itself with her enhanced clones. She allied with Dooku, Kit Fisto added, with the Separatists. Why would we trust anything she says? Because, Obi-Wan said quietly, she's the only person in this galaxy who seems to understand what we're facing. Look at the Data Masters. Every engagement with the Covenant has been a disaster. Our clone troopers are being slaughtered. Our ships are outgunned. Our tactics don't work. He pulled up battle recordings, Republic forces engaging Covenant ground troops on Christophsis. The footage was brutal. Clone troopers, well-trained and disciplined, were being systematically annihilated by alien warriors in powered armor. Energy swords carved through clone formations, plasma weapons burned through cover, and even Jedi were struggling. Master Luminara Unduli had barely escaped with her life when a golden-armored Sangheili Ultra had nearly killed her. These Covenant fight like nothing we've encountered, Obi-Wan continued. They're religious fanatics who view death in combat as salvation. They have weapons technology that surpasses ours, and they're led by something called prophets, theocratic leaders who've declared this entire galaxy an affront to their gods. And Halsey claims she can stop them, Mace said slowly. She claims she's fought them, Anakin corrected, for 30 years, in another dimension. Masters, I know we hate what she did on Kamino. I know she's dangerous, but what if she's telling the truth? What if she actually knows how to fight these things? The council was silent. Finally, Yoda spoke. Meet with her, we must, but cautiously. Trust her, we cannot. Yet ignore her knowledge, we dare not. I'll go, Mace said, with a strike force. If it's a trap. It's not a trap, a synthesized voice said from the doorway. Every Jedi's hand dropped to their lightsaber as a figure stepped into the council chamber. 7 feet of green and gold armor, a faceless golden visor and presence that radiated controlled lethality. Master Chief John 117 stood in the doorway of the Jedi Temple's most sacred space, and nobody knew how he'd gotten past their security. Spartan, Mace's voice was deadly quiet. You're trespassing in the Jedi Temple. Surrender immediately or... Dr. Halsey sent me, John interrupted, to deliver a message the hologram couldn't convey, and to prove we're serious about helping you survive. How did you get in here? Shakti demanded. This temple has security systems, guards. I'm a Spartan, John said simply. We're trained to infiltrate any structure, bypass any security, eliminate any target. If I wanted to hurt you, you'd already be dead. Instead, I'm here to offer intelligence that might save your republic. Mace's hand stayed on his lightsaber. Speak quickly, Spartan. My patience is limited. John pulled a data chip from his armor and set it on the council chamber floor. Everything the UNSC learned about the Covenant 30 years of warfare. Ship classifications, weapons specifications, tactical doctrine, ground force composition, command structure. Dr. Halsey is offering it freely, with no conditions attached. Why? Obi-Wan asked. Because, John said, and for the first time his voice carried emotion, the Covenant don't stop. They don't negotiate. They don't accept surrender. They prosecute total war until every world is glass and every living being is dead. We've watched them glass colonies. We've seen what happens when they decide a species is too heretical to exist. And Dr. Halsey doesn't want that to happen here. How noble, Shakti said skeptically. She creates Force-sensitive abominations, allies with the Sith, and now claims she wants to help us. John's helmet turned toward her. She made mistakes. She's admitted that. But those mistakes don't change the fact that she knows how to fight the Covenant. The question isn't whether you trust her. The question is whether you're willing to let this galaxy burn, rather than accept help from someone you consider morally compromised. Anakin stepped forward. Master Chief, that's what they call you, right? What exactly are the Covenant? Where did they come from? They're a theocratic alliance of alien species united by religious belief, John said. They worship beings called the Forerunners, an ancient race that built superweapons capable of sterilizing all life in a galaxy. The Covenant believe activating these weapons will send them on something they call the Great Journey, transcendence to godhood. That's insane, Kit Fisto said. That's theology, John corrected, and they've been prosecuting a holy war for thousands of years. When they encountered humanity in our dimension, they declared us heretics because we possessed Forerunner artifacts they considered sacred. The war that followed killed billions. He paused. Dr. Halsey created the Spartan program to give humanity a chance against extinction. We didn't win the war through superior technology or numbers. We won through specialized soldiers who could turn the tide of battles the Covenant thought they'd already won. Mace studied the armored figure. These enhanced clones of hers, the Force-sensitive ones. How dangerous are they? Very, John admitted, but they're also the best chance you have against Covenant ground forces. Standard clone troopers are good soldiers, but they're fighting enemies who've been bred for warfare for millennia. Sangheili warriors, the ones in golden armor you've encountered, train from childhood in combat. They're faster, stronger, and more experienced than your average clone. And Halsey's enhanced soldiers can match them? Obi-Wan asked. Better than match them, John said. Aurelius, one of the Force-sensitive enhanced clones, killed a Sangheili Ultra in single combat on Mustafar. That's a warrior with 2 centuries of experience. The fact that a 6-month-old clone could take one down should tell you something about what Dr. Halsey's augmentation process can achieve. Yoda's ears twitched. This Aurelius. Sense him through the Force, you can? I'm not Force-sensitive, John said. But yes, Jedi can sense him. He's powerful, untrained but powerful, and he's learning fast. Dangerous, that is, Yoda said quietly. Force-sensitive warriors created artificially lead to darkness. Such power could. Or it could lead to survival, John countered. Master Yoda, I've read Dr. Halsey's research on your philosophy. I understand your concerns about the dark side, about corruption, about power leading to suffering. But right now, you're facing an enemy that will glass Coruscant from orbit if you don't develop new tactical capabilities. The question isn't whether Halsey's methods are ethical. The question is whether you'd rather die pure or live compromised. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, Mace spoke. Where is Halsey now? Safe, John said. Hidden with our forces and what's left of the Separatist fleet. She's building something, a coalition of Republic, Separatist, and independent forces united against the Covenant. But she can't do it without Jedi support, without the Republic military, without resources and legitimacy. She wants us to work with Dooku, Shakti said, disgust evident. With the Sith. She wants you to work with anyone willing to fight the Covenant, John corrected. Sith, Jedi, Republic, Separatist, it doesn't matter. The Covenant won't distinguish between your factions when they start glassing worlds. To them, you're all equally heretical. Mace exchanged glances with the other council members. Some form of silent communication passed between them, deliberation through the Force that John couldn't perceive, but could recognize. "We'll meet with her," Mace said finally, "but on our terms. Neutral location, Jedi security, and Master Chief." His hand finally left his lightsaber. "You'll remain here as insurance." "Hostage," Jon said flatly. "Guest," Obi-Wan corrected with a slight smile. "An honored guest who won't be allowed to leave until we're certain this isn't an elaborate trap." Jon was silent for 3 seconds. Then, "Acceptable. But you should know, Dr. Halsey won't come alone. She'll bring her enhanced soldiers, probably some Spartans, and definitely data you'll want to review before the Covenant's next attack." "When is their next attack?" Anakin asked. As if summoned by the question, alarms began screaming throughout the Jedi Temple. "Republic Defense Forces reporting." A clone trooper's voice crackled through comms. "Multiple Covenant vessels dropping out of hyperspace. They're targeting the industrial sectors." Through the council chamber's windows, they could see it. Purple tears in space as Covenant ships emerged from slipspace. Not the full fleet this time, but enough. A dozen CCS-class battlecruisers, supported by smaller vessels, their plasma batteries already charging. "They're going to glass the manufacturing districts," Mace said, his tactical mind processing implications. "Destroy our ability to produce war materiel." "No," Jon said, his voice carrying certainty born from 3 decades of fighting Covenant forces. "They're conducting reconnaissance, testing your response times, weapon ranges, defensive capabilities. This is a probing attack designed to gather intelligence for the real assault." "How long do we have?" Obi-Wan asked. "Days, maybe a week." Jon pulled up tactical data on his armor's holographic emitters. "The Prophet of Regret is methodical. He'll study your defenses, identify weaknesses, then hit with overwhelming force. You need to use this time to prepare. Evacuate non-essential personnel from Coruscant, strengthen orbital defenses, and, most importantly," he looked directly at Mace, "accept Dr. Halsey's help before it's too late." Mace made his decision. "Obi-Wan, take a diplomatic shuttle to Halsey's coordinates. Bring her to Coruscant. But make it clear she's coming as a consultant, not an ally. We don't forgive what she did on Kamino, and we certainly don't trust her. But we'll listen." "And if she refuses?" Obi-Wan asked. "Then we face the Covenant alone," Mace said grimly, "and hope the Force is with us, because conventional warfare certainly won't be." As the Council dispersed to coordinate Republic defenses, Anakin lingered near Jon. "Spartan," the Chosen One said quietly, "this Dr. Halsey, you trust her?" Jon was silent for a long moment. "I trust that she'll do whatever it takes to stop the Covenant. Whether that makes her trustworthy or dangerous, I honestly don't know anymore. But you follow her." "I follow the mission," Jon corrected. "Right now, the mission is stopping an extinction-level threat. If that means working with Dr. Halsey, with Dooku, with the entire Separatist Council back from the dead, I'll do it, because the alternative is watching this galaxy burn." Anakin nodded slowly. "I understand that, more than the Council knows." Something in his tone made Jon study the young Jedi more carefully. Anakin Skywalker carried weight beyond his years. Fear, anger, desperation, carefully controlled but not eliminated. The kind of emotional burden that led people to make terrible choices for what they believed were the right reasons. Jon recognized it because he'd seen it in Dr. Halsey's eyes for 30 years. "Word of advice," Jon said quietly. "When you make choices that haunt you, and you will, that's what war does, make sure you can live with who you become afterward, because the victories mean nothing if you lose yourself winning them." Before Anakin could respond, the building shook, plasma fire from orbit impacting Coruscant's shields. The probing attack had begun, And somewhere in the depths of space, Dr. Catherine Halsey was preparing to return to the Republic capital, not as a wanted criminal, but as the galaxy's best hope for survival against an enemy that had followed her across dimensional barriers. The Jedi had asked for her help. Now she'd show them exactly what that help would cost. 3 hours later, Obi-Wan Kenobi's diplomatic shuttle approached the coordinates Halsey had provided. What he found made him question whether they'd made the right choice. The asteroid field designated as the meeting point held not just a few ships, but a fleet. Separatist vessels bearing Dooku's insignia, modified Republic ships that had apparently defected. Independent freighters and warships from a dozen different systems, and at the center, 3 UNSC frigates that looked like they'd been through hell, their hulls scarred by plasma fire, makeshift repairs evident across every surface. "By the Force," Obi-Wan breathed. "She's building an army." "Not an army," a voice said through his comm, female, controlled, carrying the weight of command. "A coalition. This is Dr. Halsey. Permission to come aboard your shuttle, Master Kenobi. I'd prefer not to conduct negotiations over comm channels the Covenant might intercept." Minutes later, Catherine Halsey stood in Obi-Wan's shuttle, flanked by 2 figures that made the Jedi's hand drop to his lightsaber. On her right was Aurelius, the Force-sensitive enhanced clone. His presence in the Force was wrong. Not dark, not light, but something in between. Raw power without philosophical framework, capability without Jedi restraint or a Sith corruption. On her left stood Count Dooku himself, looking far less aristocratic than usual, his Sith robes replaced with practical combat gear. "Master Kenobi," Dooku said with a slight bow, "strange circumstances make strange allies." "Count Dooku," Obi-Wan replied coldly, "the Council will be displeased." "The Council will adapt," Halsey interrupted, "or they'll die when the Covenant glasses Coruscant." "Master Kenobi, I appreciate the Jedi's philosophical concerns about working with Sith, but we don't have time for religious debates. The Covenant are conducting systematic extermination of every intelligent species in this galaxy. That includes Jedi, Sith, Republic, Separatist, everyone." She pulled up holographic data. "This is what the Covenant did to the human colony of Reach in my dimension. Population, 700 million. Time to complete glassing, 37 hours. Survivors, 0. The images were horrific. Cities burning under plasma bombardment. Civilian transports being shot down as they tried to evacuate. Entire continents reduced to radioactive glass. "They'll do the same to Coruscant," Halsey continued, "to Naboo, to every world in Republic space, and your current military doctrine won't stop them because you're fighting the Clone Wars, not an extinction war. There's a difference." "And you know how to fight an extinction war," Obi-Wan said. "I survived one," Halsey corrected, "for 30 years, and I can teach you how to survive this one. But it requires setting aside every political grudge, every philosophical difference, every reason you have to hate me or Dooku or anyone else in this coalition. Can the Jedi Council do that?" Obi-Wan studied the woman before him. He could sense no deception through the Force, just iron determination and bone-deep exhaustion. She meant every word. "The Council will meet with you," he said. "But Dr. Halsey, understand that if this is some elaborate trick, then the Covenant will kill us all anyway and your suspicions won't matter," Halsey finished. "Master Kenobi, I'm not asking for trust. I'm asking for pragmatic cooperation in the face of mutual extinction. Can we agree on at least that much?" Obi-Wan looked at Dooku, at Aurelius, at the fleet assembled in the asteroid field. Then he thought about the smoke rising over Coruscant. The 5,000 dead senators, the 3 glassed worlds. Yes, he said quietly. We can agree on that much. Halsey nodded. Then let's go save your republic. After that, we can argue about whether I should be arrested. As the shuttle turned toward Coruscant, carrying the most unlikely alliance the galaxy had ever seen, none of them noticed the small probe droid following at extreme range, or the fact that it was transmitting everything it saw directly to a Covenant stealth ship hidden in the system's outer reaches. The Prophet of Regret watched the transmission, and his lipless mouth curved into something approximating a smile. So the heretics gather, he said to his subordinates. Let them believe they can resist the will of the gods. Their defiance will make their purification all the sweeter. He gestured to his shipmasters. Prepare the fleet. In 3 days, we cleanse Coruscant. And we begin with the temple of these Jedi. Let them see what happens when mortals pretend to wield divine power. The Covenant invasion of the Star Wars galaxy was about to escalate, and caught between extinction and survival, the Republic, Separatists, and Halsey's third power would have to become something none of them had ever been before: united. The emergency session of the Jedi Council convened in a bunker 300 meters beneath the temple. It wasn't trust that had driven them underground, it was pragmatism. Covenant orbital strikes had proven capable of penetrating surface structures, and the Council couldn't afford to lose their leadership to a precision plasma bombardment. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The Guardians of the Republic, who'd operated from their gleaming temple spire for 1,000 years, were now meeting in reinforced durasteel like common criminals. Dr. Catherine Halsey stood at the center of the circular chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of Jedi masters who couldn't attend in person. Physically present were Mace Windu, Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and, surprisingly, Anakin Skywalker. The Chosen One had insisted on attending, claiming his tactical experience warranted inclusion. Behind Halsey stood her delegation, Count Dooku, whose presence made several Jedi hands drift toward lightsabers. Aurelius, radiating untrained force power that made the room's energy feel unstable, and General Grievous, whose mechanical breathing was the only sound breaking the tense silence. Unprecedented this is, Yoda said, his ancient eyes studying each member of Halsey's group. Jedi and Sith together in council, enemy and enemy seeking common cause, yet necessary, perhaps it has become. Necessity is a generous interpretation, Mace Windu said coldly. Dr. Halsey, you stand accused of crimes against sentient life, creating force-sensitive beings through artificial means, allying with separatist forces, conducting unauthorized military research. The only reason you're not in custody is because we need information about the Covenant. Don't mistake that for forgiveness. Halsey met his gaze without flinching. Master Windu, I didn't come here seeking forgiveness. I came because in approximately 72 hours, the Covenant will launch a full-scale assault on Coruscant, with enough firepower to turn this planet into glass. Whether you forgive me or execute me afterward is irrelevant if everyone in this bunker is dead. 72 hours, Obi-Wan repeated. How can you be certain? Halsey pulled up tactical projections. Because I've seen the Covenant operate for 3 decades. The probing attack 3 hours ago wasn't random. It was reconnaissance. They tested your orbital defense response times, shield coverage, fighter deployment protocols. Now they're analyzing that data, identifying weaknesses, planning the killing strike. She highlighted specific areas on the holographic Coruscant. They'll target 3 locations simultaneously: the Senate District to decapitate political leadership, the Temple to eliminate the Jedi, and the Military Command Center to cripple your defensive coordination. 3 assault carriers, each carrying approximately 10,000 ground troops and enough plasma torpedoes to level continents. "Our shields," Shakti began. "Won't matter," General Grievous interrupted, his vocabulary turning his voice mechanical and harsh. "I studied the engagement at Geonosis before these separatist foundries were destroyed. Covenant plasma weapons don't just impact shields, they burn through them. The molecular structure of their plasma is fundamentally different from turbo laser fire or any energy weapon in our databases." "He's right," Halsey said. "Covenant plasma operates at temperatures exceeding 12,000 degrees Celsius. Your planetary shields are designed to disperse energy across their surface. Covenant weapons concentrate energy at a single point until they breach. It's a battering ram versus a wall. Eventually, the wall breaks." Mace leaned forward. "Then how do we defend Coruscant?" "You don't," Halsey said flatly. "Not conventionally. Trying to stop a Covenant planetary assault with standard defensive doctrine is suicide. I've watched a dozen worlds try. They all failed." "Then what do you propose?" Anakin asked, his voice tight. "We just surrender?" "Evacuate billions and let them take the capital." "No," Dooku interjected smoothly. "We change the nature of the engagement. Dr. Halsey and I have been developing a strategy based on UNSC tactics from her dimension. Instead of trying to prevent the Covenant from landing, we let them land, then make them pay for every meter of ground they take." The council chamber erupted in protest. "Let them land?" Shakti's voice was incredulous. "You're proposing we allow an invasion force to reach the surface? The civilian casualties alone will be catastrophic regardless," Halsey interrupted coldly. "Master Tai, this isn't the Clone Wars anymore. This isn't tactical battles over droid foundries or trade routes. This is total war against an enemy that views your entire species as blasphemy. The question isn't how to avoid casualties, it's how to ensure anyone survives at all." She pulled up new projections. "We evacuate non-essential personnel from the 3 target zones. We establish kill boxes using the urban terrain. Force the Covenant into choke points where numerical superiority doesn't matter. We deploy clone troopers with weapons modified to penetrate Covenant shields. And most importantly," she looked directly at Mace, "we deploy my enhanced soldiers alongside your Jedi." "Absolutely not," Mace said. "We will not fight alongside those abominations." "Then you'll die," Aurelius said quietly. Every eye turned to the Force-sensitive clone. He stood with military bearing, but his presence in the Force had shifted, not threatening, but present in a way that made even Yoda's ears twitch. "Master Windu," Aurelius continued, "I understand what I am offends you. Artificial Force sensitivity, created through scientific means rather than natural birth. By Jedi philosophy, I shouldn't exist, but I do exist. And I've killed Covenant warriors that your Jedi Knights barely survived against." He stepped forward. "On Mustafar, I fought a Sangheili Ultra, a warrior with 2 centuries of combat experience. I won because I combined Force precognition with augmented reflexes and combat training. Your Jedi are powerful, but they're trained for dueling other Force users. The Covenant don't duel, they swarm. They use combined arms tactics, and they don't stop until you're dead, or they are." "Impressive words," Shakti said, "but words don't prove capability." "Then test me," Aurelius said simply. "Put me against your best Jedi Knight in combat simulation. If I lose, you can dismiss Dr. Halsey's enhanced soldiers as inferior. If I win, you accept that we might be able to help." Mace and Yoda exchanged glances. Some silent communication passed between them through the Force. "Very well," Mace said. "Training Chamber 7. You'll face Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, strongest force-sensitive of his generation, non-lethal combat, first to 3 confirmed strikes, wins. Anakin's head snapped toward Mace. Master, I will demonstrate why Jedi training surpasses artificial enhancement, Mace finished. Unless you believe otherwise? Anakin's jaw tightened. No, Master. 20 minutes later, they assembled in one of the temple's combat training chambers, a large circular room with reinforced walls and energy barriers to contain force powers during practice duels. Anakin and Aurelius stood opposite each other, both armed with training lightsabers set to non-lethal but still painful settings. Halsey watched from the observation gallery, her mind calculating probabilities. Aurelius had been alive for 6 months. Anakin Skywalker had been training since childhood. The Chosen One's midi-chlorian count was reportedly off the charts, over 20,000, the highest ever recorded. But Aurelius had something Anakin didn't. Augmented physiology that made his reflexes 40% faster than baseline human, and combat instincts flash-trained directly into his neural pathways. This is a mistake, John 1:17 said quietly beside Halsey. The Master Chief had been allowed to observe, though a dozen Jedi kept careful watch on him. Aurelius isn't ready for this level of opponent. He doesn't need to win, Halsey replied. He needs to prove he belongs on the same battlefield. There's a difference. Mace Windu stood between the two combatants. Standard temple rules. The Force is permitted. Injury is acceptable. Permanent damage is not. Begin. Anakin moved first, his form perfect, classic Shi'an aggressive assault. The training saber whipped toward Aurelius in a precise arc meant to overwhelm defensive posture. Aurelius didn't try to block conventionally. Instead, he felt the attack coming through the Force, perceived the strike half a second before it landed, and his augmented body responded at speeds that blurred. He sidestepped, let the blade pass centimeters from his torso, and countered with a strike of his own. Anakin blocked easily, his Jedi training providing muscle memory for 10,000 defensive sequences, but his eyes widened fractionally. Aurelius was fast, faster than most Jedi Knights. They exchanged strikes, testing each other. Anakin's technique was flawless, each movement flowing naturally into the next. Aurelius's technique was rougher, his form borrowed from Dooku's instruction and flash-trained memories that lacked the refinement of years of practice. But what Aurelius lacked in technique, he compensated for with raw physical capability. When Anakin pressed an attack, Aurelius didn't just parry, he absorbed the strike with enhanced strength, then pushed back with force that made Anakin stumble. When Anakin tried to use force-enhanced speed, Aurelius matched him through augmented reflexes. He's adapting, Obi-Wan observed from the gallery, learning Anakin's patterns mid-combat. The augmentation process includes accelerated neural plasticity, Halsey explained. Enhanced soldiers process new information faster than baseline humans. Every strike Anakin makes, Aurelius's brain is cataloging, analyzing, predicting the next variation. Anakin felt it too. The clone was getting better during the fight, each exchange teaching him something new. It was unnerving fighting someone who learned at that speed. So Anakin stopped holding back. He reached into the Force, drew on his connection to call on power that made the air crackle with energy, and pushed. Telekinetic force slammed into Aurelius like an invisible freight train. The enhanced clone flew backward, crashed into the chamber wall hard enough to crack the durasteel, and dropped to one knee. First point, Mace announced. Aurelius stood slowly, blood running from his nose. The impact would have knocked a normal human unconscious. His augmented physiology had absorbed damage that should have broken ribs. That's cheating, Halsey muttered. That's the Force Dooku corrected quietly. Anakin is using his full capabilities as he should. Aurelius raised his training saber. Again. This time, when Anakin unleashed Force Push, Aurelius was ready. He didn't try to resist. Instead, he used the Force himself, not to counter Anakin's push, but to redirect it. The telekinetic energy slipped past him, and Aurelius moved through the attack, closing distance with augmented speed. His training saber struck Anakin's shoulder, confirmed hit. "Point to the clone," Mace said, surprise evident in his voice. Anakin's expression darkened. The Chosen One didn't like being surprised. He attacked with renewed intensity, his strikes faster, harder, more aggressive. This was Anakin Skywalker at his most dangerous. Raw power combined with technical skill, driven by emotions the Jedi tried to suppress but never quite eliminated. Aurelius met the assault with everything he had. Augmented reflexes, force precognition, flash-trained combat algorithms. But it wasn't enough. Anakin was simply too powerful, too experienced, too naturally gifted. The training saber caught Aurelius across the ribs. Second point to Anakin, then across the leg, third point, then a force-enhanced strike that disarmed Aurelius entirely, sending his training saber clattering across the chamber floor. The enhanced clone stood empty-handed, breathing hard, blood running from cuts on his face and arms, defeated. But when he met Anakin's eyes, he was smiling. "You're better than me," Aurelius said. "Stronger in the Force, better trained, more experienced. In a duel, you win every time." He wiped blood from his face. "But I lasted 3 minutes against the Chosen One. I landed a confirmed strike, and most importantly," he looked up at the observation gallery, at the Jedi Council watching, "I proved I can fight on the same battlefield as Jedi Knights. That's all Dr. Halsey needed me to prove." Anakin deactivated his training saber, breathing heavily. "You're good. For someone 6 months old, you're unnaturally good." "Because I'm unnaturally made," Aurelius agreed. "But Master Skywalker, when the Covenant land on Coruscant in 3 days, they won't care whether I was born or built. They'll just try to kill me, and I'll kill them back. That's what I was created for." In the observation gallery, Mace turned to Halsey. "Your enhanced soldier performed adequately." "He performed exceptionally," Halsey corrected. "Master Windu, Anakin Skywalker has been training since he was 9 years old. He's the Chosen One, literally the most powerful Force-sensitive in Jedi history. And Aurelius, who's been alive for 6 months, held his own for 3 minutes and scored a confirmed hit. If that doesn't demonstrate the value of augmentation, I don't know what will." "It demonstrates that you can create warriors," Yoda said quietly. "But warriors without wisdom, dangerous they can become. Powerful, yes, but the dark side, always a temptation for those who seek power." "Then teach them wisdom," Halsey said. "Master Yoda, you're worried about my enhanced soldiers falling to the dark side? Fine. Assign Jedi mentors. Provide philosophical training alongside combat deployment. But don't waste their capabilities because you're afraid of what they might become." She pulled up projections again. Casualty estimates for the coming Covenant assault. "Without my enhanced soldiers, Republic forces will suffer approximately 40% casualties in the first 6 hours of ground combat. With them, we can reduce that to 20%. That's thousands of lives saved, Master Yoda. Is your philosophical purity worth those deaths?" The ancient Jedi Master was silent for a long moment. Then, "Agree to joint deployment, I will. But conditions there must be. Enhanced soldiers will operate under Jedi tactical command. Kill teams. They will form Jedi and enhanced clone together. And Dr. Halsey." His eyes were ancient and knowing. "Personally responsible for their actions, you will be held. Fall to darkness they do, and your burden it becomes. Accepted, Halsey said without hesitation. Mace looked like he wanted to object, but recognized he'd been overruled. What else do you need from the Republic? Everything, Grievous said, his mechanical voice cutting through the tension. Weapons manufacturing shifted to anti-Covenant munitions. Clone trooper training modified for asymmetric warfare. Civilian evacuation protocols for 3 million non-essential personnel. And most critically, the cyborg general pulled up schematics. We need to modify your planetary defense platforms. The holographic display showed Coruscant's orbital defense network, massive weapons platforms designed to repel separatist fleets. Grievous highlighted specific modifications. Current configuration uses turbo laser batteries optimized for capital ship engagement, Grievous explained. Effective against standard shielding, useless against Covenant energy barriers. We need to reconfigure half your platforms with kinetic weapons, mass drivers firing tungsten slugs at relativistic speeds. Covenant shields don't handle kinetic impacts as effectively as energy weapons. That will take days, Shakti objected. Days we don't have. Then we work fast, Dooku said. The Separatist remnant has manufacturing capacity still intact. We can produce the mass driver components if the Republic provides installation crews. Republic and Separatist cooperation, Obi-Wan said slowly, working together to defend Coruscant. Master Yoda, the Council, approve. We must, Yoda finished. Strange times these are. Alliances that should not exist, yet must. Trust the Force, we will. That right this path is. There's one more thing, Halsey said. Something I haven't told anyone yet because the implications are problematic. She pulled up sensor data from the dimensional barrier, the rift that had brought her Spartans to this galaxy, and later allowed the Covenant to follow. The barrier between dimensions is destabilizing, Halsey said quietly. Whatever brought us here, whatever allowed the Covenant to follow, it's getting worse. I'm detecting micro-rifts opening across the galaxy, small enough that most sensors don't register them, but they're there. What does that mean? Anakin asked. It means more could be coming, Halsey said. Not just Covenant, anything from my dimension could potentially cross over, including... She paused, weighing whether to reveal this, including more UNSC forces. If the dimensional barrier continues breaking down, Earth might find a way to send reinforcements. Hope flickered across several faces. More human forces, more advanced technology, more help against the Covenant. But Halsey's expression remained grim. Or it could bring something worse. The Flood, for instance, a parasitic species that nearly destroyed both humanity and the Covenant. If they cross over, this galaxy faces something that makes the Covenant look tame. One apocalypse at a time, Mace said dryly. Right now, we focus on the Covenant assault in 3 days. Dr. Halsey, you'll coordinate defensive planning with Republic Military Command. Count Dooku. The name was said with barely concealed disgust. Your Separatist forces will integrate with Republic defensive positions. General Grievous will advise on ground force deployment. He turned to Aurelius. Your enhanced soldiers will deploy in kill teams with Jedi Knights. Master Skywalker will lead the temple defense. Master Kenobi will coordinate the Senate district. I will command the military command center defense. What about me? Halsey asked. You'll remain in this bunker, Mace said flatly, under guard. You're too valuable to risk in direct combat, and frankly, I still don't trust you not to have ulterior motives. Fair enough, Halsey said, but I want real-time tactical feeds. If I'm coordinating defense, I need to see what's happening. Granted, Mace said. He stood, signaling the meeting's end. 3 days. Republic, Separatist, UNSC, Jedi, Sith, all of us working together to defend one planet. If we survive this, the political ramifications will be complex. If we survive this, Dooku said quietly, politics will be the least of our concerns. The Covenant won't stop with Coruscant. This is just the beginning of a galactic war that will make the Clone Wars look like a border skirmish. As the council dispersed, Halsey lingered, looking at the tactical projections. 3 days, 72 hours to prepare for an assault that had destroyed hundreds of worlds in her dimension. She'd created the Spartan program to save humanity. She'd built enhanced clones to survive in an alien galaxy. Now she was coordinating the defense of a capital city for a republic that hated her, working alongside Sith she didn't trust, commanding soldiers who questioned her every decision. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that this was penance, that every life saved in the coming battle was a small redemption for the 17 enhanced soldiers who died on Kamino, for the 37 children who died in Spartan augmentation, for every compromise she'd made in the name of survival. "Doctor!" John's voice pulled her from contemplation. "The enhanced soldiers are asking for you. They want to know if this alliance means they're fighting for the Republic now." Halsey looked at her oldest Spartan, at the faceless golden visor that had been by her side through 3 decades of impossible choices. "Tell them they're fighting for survival," Halsey said. "Not for the Republic, not for me. For themselves and everyone in this galaxy who doesn't deserve to die because the Covenant decided they're heretical." She turned toward the exit. "And John, make sure they understand, when this battle starts, some of them won't come back. I need them ready for that." "They already know, Doctor," John said quietly. "We buried 17 of their brothers 3 days ago. They understand what war costs." As Halsey walked through the underground bunker toward the barracks where her enhanced soldiers waited, she allowed herself one moment of honest reflection. She'd spent her life creating weapons to fight humanity's wars. Now, for the first time, she was creating warriors who understood they were more than just weapons. Whether that made her a better person or just a more effective manipulator, she honestly didn't know. But in 3 days, when the Covenant fleet arrived and Coruscant burned, she'd find out if redemption was something that could be earned on a battlefield, or if some sins were too deep to ever wash clean. The modifications to Coruscant's defenses took 68 hours. Halsey watched through real-time feeds as clone engineers and separatist technicians worked side by side. Enemies turned allies through existential necessity. Half the orbital defense platforms were being retrofitted with mass drivers, their elegant turbo-laser batteries replaced by brutal kinetic weapons that looked primitive by comparison but would punch through Covenant shields with devastating efficiency. On the surface, the city transformed into a fortress. 3 million non-essential personnel evacuated through emergency protocols that turned the sky lanes into rivers of fleeing transports. Clone troopers established defensive positions in the Senate District, the Temple, and around the military command center, the 3 targets Halsey had identified as primary. And in the Temple's training chambers, something unprecedented was happening. Jedi and enhanced clones learning to fight together. Halsey observed through holocam feeds, her datapad tracking every interaction, every moment of cooperation or friction. Master Obi-Wan Kenobi worked with Alpha Squad, teaching them to coordinate force-sensitive awareness with augmented combat capabilities. Anakin Skywalker drilled Beta Squad on urban warfare tactics, his aggressive style meshing surprisingly well with their flash-trained assault protocols. But it was the conversation happening in Training Chamber 7 that captured Halsey's full attention. Aurelius stood across from a Jedi Knight she didn't recognize, a Twi'lek female named Ayla Secura, known for her combat prowess and unorthodox tactics. They weren't sparring, they were talking. "You're afraid," Ayla said, her leku twitching slightly as she studied the enhanced clone through the Force. "Not of battle. You've proven yourself capable in combat. You're afraid of what you are." Aurelius was silent for a long moment. "Wouldn't you be? I was created in a laboratory, given memories that aren't mine, augmented to be a weapon and imbued with Force sensitivity through scientific manipulation. By every measure of natural order, I'm an abomination. By every measure of Jedi philosophy, you're impossible," Ayla corrected gently. "But impossible and abomination aren't the same thing. The Force flows through you, Aurelius. I can sense it, and the Force doesn't make mistakes." The Jedi Council disagrees. "The Jedi Council is terrified," Ayla said bluntly. "You represent something they don't understand. Force power that wasn't nurtured through decades of training, that didn't emerge naturally through meditation and discipline. You threaten their entire philosophical framework about how Force sensitivity should work." She activated her lightsaber, the blue blade humming to life. "But here's what I know. In 3 hours, the Covenant will arrive. And when they do, the Force won't care whether you were born or built. It will only care whether you use your power to protect life or destroy it. That choice is what defines you, not your origin." Aurelius ignited his own blade. "Dr. Halsey made me to be a weapon. I've accepted that. But after Kamino, after watching 17 of my brothers die for a mission I couldn't justify, I started wondering if weapons can choose their targets." "They can," Ayla said, "and they should." She moved into a combat stance. "Now, let's see if this weapon can keep up with a Jedi Knight who actually wants to teach him something." They dueled, and Halsey watched with clinical fascination. Ayla wasn't trying to dominate like Anakin had. She was teaching. When Aurelius made a mistake, she corrected his form. When he demonstrated a clever technique, she built on it. And slowly, over the course of 30 minutes, the enhanced clone's raw capability began finding structure. "She's good with him," Tanwi observed. The Kaminoan scientist had been working on last-minute augmentation protocols, but she'd paused to watch the same feed. "Better than the other Jedi. She doesn't see him as a threat to be contained. She sees potential to be guided." "Because she's young enough to adapt," Halsey said. "The older Jedi, Mace, Yoda, they're locked into philosophical frameworks that don't have room for scientific Force enhancement. But Ayla Secura, she's pragmatic. She recognizes that survival requires evolving beyond dogma." Tanwi's elongated fingers tapped against her datapad. "Dr. Halsey, I've been running projections on the enhanced clone's performance in urban combat against Covenant forces. Even with Jedi support, casualty estimates are concerning." Halsey pulled up the data. Tanwi was right. The enhanced soldiers would perform better than standard clones, significantly better, but against Sangheili warriors with centuries of combat experience, against hunters in bonded pairs, wielding plasma cannons, against the sheer numerical weight of a full Covenant ground assault, losses would be catastrophic. "How many?" Halsey asked quietly. 40% casualties in the first 6 hours, 60% by the time the battle ends, assuming we win. 46 enhanced soldiers, dead or permanently disabled, out of the 76 who'd chosen to follow her after Kamino. Halsey felt the familiar cold calculation settle over her. The same mathematics that had justified the Spartan 2 program. The lives she'd sacrifice weighed against the lives she'd save. 46 deaths to prevent 40,000. The equation was simple. But this time, it felt different. "Pull up the roster," Halsey said. "I want to know their names, all of them." Tanwi's black eyes widened slightly. "Doctor, you've never—" "I know," Halsey interrupted. "I've spent 3 decades treating soldiers as numbers because it was easier than acknowledging they were people. I'm not doing that anymore. If they're going to die protecting this city, the least I can do is know who they are." The datapad displayed 76 enhanced clones, each with a designation number and a name they'd chosen for themselves. Aurelius, Castor, Marcus, Theron, Ajax, Perseus. Names drawn from ancient mythology and history, chosen by soldiers barely 6 months old who wanted identity beyond their creation serial numbers. Halsey read each one, memorized faces from their service photos, noted their squad assignments, their specializations, their performance ratings. These were her children, not in the biological sense. She'd never birthed them, never nursed them, never held them as infants, but she'd created them, designed their augmentations, given them purpose, and in 3 hours she'd send 46 of them to die. The weight of it threatened to crush her. "Doctor," John's voice came through her comm. "Covenant fleet detected at system's edge. 3 assault carriers exactly as you predicted. ETA to Coruscant orbit, 2 hours, 40 minutes. Halsey's moment of reflection shattered. She was back in crisis mode. The cold, analytical mind that had built the Spartan program, that had created enhanced clones, that had negotiated with Sith and Jedi alike. "Sound general alert," Halsey ordered. "All defensive positions to full readiness. Have the orbital platforms lock targeting solutions on the assault carriers. And get me a direct line to Mace Windu. It's time to implement final deployment protocols." Minutes later, Halsey stood in the command bunker's Strategic Operations Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing Coruscant from orbit. The Covenant fleet approached with mechanical precision, 3 assault carriers in a triangular formation, each one massive enough to glass continents. Mace Windu's hologram appeared. "Dr. Halsey, Covenant forces are entering engagement range. Our orbital platforms are targeting the lead carrier." "Don't fire yet," Halsey said. "Let them get closer. Covenant assault carriers have point defense systems that can intercept long-range kinetic rounds. We need them within 20,000 kilometers before the mass drivers become effectively unavoidable." "That close, they can launch ground forces," Mace objected. "That's the point," Halsey said. "Master Windu, we can't stop them from landing. I've tried explaining this. Covenant planetary assault doctrine is designed to overwhelm orbital defenses through sheer firepower, but once they commit to ground deployment, they become predictable. We know where they'll land, we know their primary objectives, and we can prepare kill boxes that turn their numerical superiority into a liability." Count Dooku's hologram materialized beside Mace. "Dr. Halsey is correct. I've reviewed the tactical analysis. Our best chance is letting them land, then bleeding them through urban combat, where our knowledge of the terrain provides advantage. This goes against every military doctrine the Republic has developed." An Admiral Yularen, from his insignia, objected. "We're supposed to stop invasions at orbital range, not allow enemy forces to reach population centers." "Your military doctrine was developed fighting separatist droid armies," General Grievous's mechanical voice cut through. "The Covenant aren't droids. They're religious zealots who view death in combat as martyrdom. You can't intimidate them. You can't make them retreat through superior firepower. You can only kill them one by one until there aren't enough left to threaten you." The Covenant fleet entered weapons range. Plasma batteries on all 3 assault carriers began charging, their purple energy signatures building toward lethal discharge. All platforms, Halsey ordered, prepare to fire on my mark. Target the lead carrier's shield generators here, here, and here. She highlighted specific points on the holographic display. Mass drivers in sequence. We need to punch through their shields before they can rotate shield facing. How do you know where their shield generators are? Yularen asked. Because I've destroyed 7 Covenant assault carriers in my dimension, Halsey said flatly. Their design is standardized. The shield generators are always in the same locations because Covenant technology advancement is restricted by religious doctrine. They can't improve Forerunner-inspired designs without committing heresy. She watched the tactical display as the assault carriers closed to 18,000 kilometers. 15,000, 12,000. Now, Halsey said, fire everything. Coruscant's modified orbital platforms unleashed hell. 30 mass drivers fired simultaneously, each one hurling a tungsten slug the size of a small transport at relativistic speeds. The projectiles crossed 12,000 kilometers in seconds, their kinetic energy devastating. The Covenant shields flared brilliant purple as they absorbed impacts. But Halsey had calculated correctly. The mass drivers were hitting the same points repeatedly, concentrating kinetic force against localized shield sections. The lead assault carrier's forward shield collapsed. Immediately, turbo laser batteries from Republic Venators added their firepower, blue-white energy lances carving into the exposed hull. The assault carrier's armor, meters-thick nano-laminate plating, held against the first volley, the second. But the third turbo laser strike punched through and secondary explosions rippled across the carrier's forward section. Target destroyed, Yularen asked hopefully. Damaged, Halsey corrected, watching the assault carrier limp backward, trailing atmosphere. But Covenant ships are compartmentalized. They can survive incredible damage and keep fighting. The other 2 carriers are still operational and the intact assault carriers opened fire. Plasma torpedoes the size of buildings streaked toward Coruscant's orbital platforms. The weapons moved slower than turbo laser fire, but carried exponentially more destructive power. When they impacted platform shields, the results were catastrophic. One platform shield held for 3 seconds before the plasma burned through. The platform itself lasted another 2 seconds before its reactor went critical. The explosion was visible from the surface, a new star blooming in Coruscant's sky. Platform 7 destroyed, a technician reported. Platform 12's shields are failing. Platform 3 is. The tactical display painted an increasingly grim picture. Coruscant's orbital defenses were being systematically annihilated. The mass drivers had damaged 1 assault carrier, but the cost was unsustainable. All remaining platforms fall back to defensive formation beta, Halsey ordered. Concentrate fire on... Doctor! Tanwi's voice was urgent. The assault carriers are launching ground forces. Multiple Phantom and Spirit dropships deploying. I count over 300 craft. Halsey watched the holographic display fill with enemy contacts. Covenant dropships burning through Coruscant's atmosphere, their shields deflecting anti-aircraft fire. They moved in coordinated groups, each formation heading for one of the 3 predicted targets. Here we go, Mace said grimly. All ground forces. This is General Windu. The Covenant have landed. Execute defensive protocols. May the Force be with us all. Through the command bunker's feeds, Halsey watched the first Covenant dropships touch down in the Senate District. Their hatches opened and out poured the nightmare she'd fought for 3 decades. Sangheili warriors in combat armor, energy swords igniting, Ungoi infantry in methane masks, plasma pistols charging, Kigyar snipers taking elevated positions. And worst of all, Megalic Golo hunters, massive armored beings in bonded pairs, wielding fuel rod cannons that could level buildings. The clone troopers opened fire immediately. Blue blaster bolts filled the air, hammering against Covenant shields. Some shots penetrated, dropping Ungoi and minor Sanghili. But the veterans, the majors and ultras in gold and crimson armor, shrugged off the fire and advanced with terrifying discipline. Clone casualties mounting, a tactical officer reported. Senate District defensive line is holding but under severe pressure, requesting Jedi support. Deploying now. Obi-Wan's voice came through the comm, steady despite the chaos Halsey could hear in the background. Master T, take your battalion and reinforce the western approach. I'll handle the main assault. Through the feed, Halsey watched Obi-Wan Kenobi wade into combat like a force of nature. His blue lightsaber deflected plasma fire with impossible precision, each movement economical and effective. When a Sanghili Ultra charged him with an energy sword, Obi-Wan met the attack head-on, and the resulting duel was beautiful in its violence. But even Obi-Wan was struggling. For every Covenant warrior he killed, 3 more pushed forward. The Republic's defensive line was bending. Enhanced soldiers deploy to Senate District, Halsey ordered. Beta Squad with Master Kenobi. Delta Squad to reinforce the western approach. Acknowledged, Castor's voice came through, Beta Squad's leader. We're moving. The tactical feed showed Beta Squad emerging from prepared positions. 16 enhanced clones in Mark 7 armor. Their weapons upgraded with Covenant-piercing ammunition Grievous had helped design. They moved through the urban battlefield with augmented speed, their force-enhanced awareness allowing them to dodge plasma fire that would have killed normal soldiers. When they reached Obi-Wan's position, everything changed. The enhanced clones didn't fight like clone troopers. They fought like Spartans, aggressive, adaptable, using terrain and enemy weaknesses with ruthless efficiency. When a Sanghili Ultra charged their formation, 3 enhanced soldiers concentrated fire on its shields until they collapsed, then put precise shots through its skull. When hunters advanced, firing fuel rod cannons that could vaporize squads, the enhanced clones used their augmented strength to throw debris as cover, then flanked with coordinated precision that exploited the hunters' limited peripheral vision. And when Obi-Wan found himself overwhelmed by 4 Sanghili majors attacking simultaneously, Castor was there. The enhanced clones augmented reflexes, allowing him to track all 4 attackers, his force sensitivity giving him split-second warnings, his combat training providing the killing strikes. "They're magnificent," Obi-Wan said between gasps for breath. "Dr. Halsey, your enhanced soldiers they're saving lives." Halsey felt something unknot in her chest. Validation, not for her methods. Those would always be morally questionable. But for the soldiers themselves. Proof that they were more than weapons, more than abominations. They were heroes. But the celebration was premature. "Doctor!" Tanwi's voice was panicked. "Temple feed, you need to see this." The display switched to the Jedi Temple, where Anakin Skywalker led the defense. And what Halsey saw made her blood run cold. A Covenant scarab had landed. The massive quadrupedal assault platform, 50 meters tall, armed with a focus cannon that could cut through buildings, was advancing on the temple's main entrance. Clone troopers and Jedi alike were throwing everything they had at it, but their weapons bounced off its armor like raindrops. "Anakin, fall back!" Mace's voice commanded. "We can't stop a scarab with lightsabers." "The temple holds thousands of Jedi artifacts," Anakin shot back. "If it breaches the vaults..." The scarab's focus cannon fired. A lance of superheated plasma carved through the temple's outer wall. melting stone and durasteel like wax. Jedi and clones caught in the beam simply ceased to exist. Alpha Squad, deploy to temple immediately, Halsey ordered. Aurelius, that scarab is your primary target. Doctor, we don't have weapons that can penetrate scarab armor. Aurelius responded, his voice tight. Then find its weak point, Halsey said. Every Covenant vehicle has one. The scarab's is at the rear, a power core access panel. If you can get inside through the rear hatch, you can overload the core. That's suicide, Aurelius said flatly. That's the mission, Halsey replied, her voice cold. I'm not asking you to die for glory. I'm asking you to stop that scarab before it kills everyone in the temple. Can you do it? Silence for 3 heartbeats. Then, we'll do it. Alpha Squad moving. Through the tactical feed, Halsey watched 16 enhanced soldiers sprint toward a mechanical monster that outweighed them by orders of magnitude. They moved with coordinated precision, half providing suppressing fire to draw the scarab's attention, the other half circling to attack from the rear. The scarab's anti-infantry turrets tracked them, plasma fire turning the ground to molten slag. 2 enhanced soldiers went down, killed instantly by direct hits. The rest kept moving, their augmented speed allowing them to dodge fire that would have shredded normal troops. Aurelius reached the scarab's rear hatch first. He ignited his lightsaber and drove it into the locking mechanism, the energy blade cutting through Covenant alloys with desperate precision. The hatch blew open and Alpha Squad poured inside. The interior of a scarab was a nightmare. Tight corridors filled with Ungoi and Kig-Yar defenders, all firing at point-blank range. The enhanced clones fought with brutal close-quarters efficiency, their augmented strength allowing them to physically overpower enemies, while their force awareness gave them split-second warnings of incoming fire. But casualties mounted. Another enhanced soldier down, then another. The corridor leading to the power core was a meat grinder. We're taking heavy losses, Aurelius reported, but we're almost to the core. Get there, Halsey shouted. Whatever it costs, get there. Through the helmet cam feeds, she watched Aurelius and the 3 remaining members of Alpha Squad reach the scarab's power core, a massive reactor pulsing with exotic energy. The force-sensitive clone pulled out plasma grenades scavenged from dead Covenant soldiers. Setting charges, Aurelius said. Doctor, once these detonate, we won't have time to escape. The chain reaction will consume the entire scarab in seconds. Halsey's throat tightened. Aurelius, there has to be another way. There isn't, he interrupted gently. And Doctor, thank you for creating me, for giving me purpose, for showing me that weapons can choose to be shields. He armed the grenades. Aurelius, wait! The feed cut to static. 4 seconds later, the scarab exploded from the inside. The detonation was catastrophic, the power core's exotic matter reacting with the plasma grenades in a chain reaction that turned the entire assault platform into an expanding fireball. The shockwave shattered windows across 3 city blocks. When the smoke cleared, the scarab was gone, reduced to burning wreckage and twisted metal. So was Alpha Squad. Halsey stared at the dead feed, unable to process what had just happened. Aurelius, the first force-sensitive enhanced clone, the soldier who'd questioned her methods and demanded better, the being who'd proven that artificial creation didn't preclude genuine consciousness, was gone. Doctor, Tanwi said softly, the temple is secure, the scarab is destroyed. Alpha Squad's sacrifice saved hundreds of Jedi. Halsey said nothing, couldn't say anything. The cold calculation that had carried her through 3 decades of warfare had frozen solid. She'd sent them. She'd ordered them to their deaths, and they'd obeyed, because that's what soldiers did, what weapons did. what her enhanced clones had been created to do. Dr. Halsey, Mace Windu's voice came through, and for the first time, it carried something other than coldness. Your enhanced soldiers, Alpha Squad's sacrifice will be honored. They saved the temple. They saved lives that can never be replaced. They were irreplaceable too, Halsey said, her voice hollow. She turned back to the tactical displays. The battle was still raging. The Senate District, the temple, the military command center, Covenant forces pushing forward, Republic and enhanced clones pushing back, lives being spent like currency in an economy of survival, and Halsey, the architect of it all, watching her creations die for a galaxy that wasn't theirs, fighting enemies that had followed them across dimensional barriers, all because she'd been too desperate for relevance to consider the cost. Redemption, she'd thought. This battle would be her redemption. But redemption required sacrifice, and the price was being paid in lives she'd created. 60 enhanced soldiers remained. 46 would die before this battle ended. Halsey would remember every name, because that was the least, the absolute least she owed them.